Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Shaping Tomorrow on IKIM Radio. This is Shafiq Burhanuddin, Senior Research Officer at IKIM. And in this episode, we are very honored to have a scholar based in Istanbul, but originally from Japan. He is Dr. Qayyim Naoki Yamamoto. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Qayyim.
Walaikum warahmatullah. Thank you for inviting me.
Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us. Before we begin our conversation, allow me to start with a preface to our topic today, which is on progress and development based on Asian wisdom. It is often taken for granted today that every civilization has its own conception of progress and development. While countries like Malaysia have over the years adopted a policy called the Look East policy, which seeks to benefit from the expertise of Far Eastern Asian countries instead of merely imitating a Western model of development, the vision and wisdom of Asian civilization is hardly being considered deeply. In this episode, we hope to learn and reflect more on this issue from the standpoint of Asian wisdom and Asian civilization through the work and thoughts of Dr. Qayyim Naoki Yamamoto, who is currently an assistant professor at Graduate School of Turkic Studies, Marmara University, Istanbul. He completed his PhD at the Graduate School of Asia and Africa Studies, Kyoto University, in 2018. Dr. Qayyim specializes in Ottoman Tasawwuf and traditional Japanese culture. His publications include a Japanese translation of Sulami's Kitāb al-Futuwwa, and another one is Introduction to Tasawwuf, a comparison with Shonen Manga. I would like to pick up a statement that a more senior scholar in Turkey said about what he has done, Dr. Recep Sentuk. He made the point that there are very few individuals in the world who are able to compare between the traditional philosophies of Far Eastern Asian civilization and the Islamic civilization. And Alhamdulillah, we are very privileged that we have somebody like Dr. Qayyim Naoki, who is one of them, such individuals who is able to make such comparisons of a hugely significant topic. Dr. Qayyim, perhaps we'd like to begin our conversation in terms of getting to know more your expertise, your familiarity on this field of Asian wisdom or Asian philosophies. I mean, there are many other interviews written and on video which have done with you with regards to your own journey, which in itself is very interesting and deserves a separate video altogether. I was wondering whether you could share with us your exposure to this Asian tradition so that we can better understand from where you're coming from, Dr. Qayyim, please.
Okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, again, thank you very much for inviting me. Such a good program. Well, my experience to the Asian tradition is actually I grew up as a Japanese, and my family was relatively traditional and conservative. So I have been in touch with my traditional culture since I was a child. But to be honest, I don't want to lie. So to be honest, I was not that serious with my own culture. So
Okay.
and the thing is, I became more keen to my cultural background. You mean my cultural background, especially Japanese culture, is after becoming after I become Muslim, right? And that is and you also and that experience is actually after, especially I visiting Malaysia and Egypt and also Istanbul, Turkey, because in Japan, I know that many countries are too howdy about Japan. If Japan is considered as one of the most successful country in terms of modernizations or industry or developing their industries, and as while they are preserving the traditional culture. And I would feel happy when I hear this, but in the reality, especially in the big cities, Japan is now become really westernized and also secularized. So it means that Japanese are also now in loss of their identity, and they're struggling to keep their traditional values and also the culture. But when I was an undergraduate student, I visited Malaysia. I think it was the summer, and at the time I was non-Muslim. But once I entered the city of Kuala Lumpur, I got shocked because I saw and I attend some international conference, I think, at the time. And I got shocked that there are like intellectuals who wear the traditional Malay clothes instead of Western suits. And in Japan, it's impossible. Like, for example, like if someone hold an international conference, Kyoto University or Tokyo University, Shueisha University, and when they talk about anything we do, like economics or sociology or somewhat, I think 99.99% of the professor, they wear Western clothes. But in Malaysia, like both like male intellectual and female intellectual, they are wearing the traditional, the Malay, local clothes called batik. And it's batik, right? I think the name.
Yes, correct.
And in the public space, it was considered as like official clothes.
Yes.
And in Egypt, it also same. Like in Egypt, like most of the intellectuals, they wear traditional clothes. The Western suits. But in the street, there are so many Egyptian people who still wearing their local clothes. I mean, even this is simple example was so inspiring to me. But yet, when I at the time, 13 years ago, the first time I visited Malaysia, many people talk about for example, like this look east policy and how Malaysia is trying to learn from Japan about what kind of vision that they can learn from from Japanese government or like Japanese policies. But actually, from my experiences, I think Japanese should look like Muslim countries. Like instead of look east, actually Japanese should look east again without tradition, but not for themselves, not from their own context, but they should learn some kind of like strong vision that Muslim countries are keeping on. And
Dr. Qayyim, that's a very interesting trajectory of a thought, basically. But before we get you to delve further on that very interesting line of thought, I was wondering whether you could share a bit your view in terms when you said earlier that Japan is increasingly losing its identity and it's largely westernized and secularized now. I think we rarely can hear a Japanese person articulate this so explicitly, or maybe they don't do it with the outside world, or maybe they, sometimes maybe they don't want to confess it. But the fact that you're being very explicit about it is very interesting. And just want to know, as someone from your viewpoint, someone who's familiar with the tradition of Asian civilizations, prior to modern times, what was the sort of critical point that led Japan to that current trajectory? Because it's been for the longest time, it's been very traditional nation civilization, and I think even in 20th century they did try to preserve the Japanese soul. I think that's a famous statement, Wakon Yosai, I think, where they speak about preserving a Japanese soul, but benefiting from Western technology or advancements. But what do you think have led to the loss of that identity or that soul of Japan, basically?
Yes, I'm not especially in the history, so I may say something like wrong. But as you stated, during the Meiji period, during the Asian modernization, Japanese are claiming that we can accomplish so-called Wakon Yosa, Japanese spirit, Western technologies. But I think like drastic change has become, and after the loss of Second World War, and because of and this event had an impact on like Japanese mindset. The first is that we got defeated by so-called like Western powers, and there is a famous statement of the Ibn Khaldun from Muqaddimah, and he analyzed the psychologies of the people who got defeated, by the power. And I think he was referring to the Muslim in Spain,
right,
the Andalus, that they got defeated by the Christian power. And Ibn Khaldun was analyzing that now at the time those Muslim in Andalus was started imitating the way of living of the Christian. in Europe, and say that and that the people who got defeated, they wrongly assume that that origin of their power is like way of living, the way of thinking, and they start lose their like identity and start to imitate. And actually, and what is really interesting that even Haldun is not like a the intellectual in the 21st century, but I think his analysis perfectly goes with Japanese mindset as well. Like they after the Second World War, I think, I mean, even the education now education I got when I was a child is exactly the good example. Like they think that if we can think like Western people, and if got educated by in the way of the Western education, it means like we got civilized. That's why we start history philosophy from the age of Plato, the ancient Greek. But but I think now this is a time that we have to critically analyze what we are doing, because as I said, in Malaysia, like people are wearing like batik and they are intellectual. But now in Japan, look, like now I'm wearing these Japanese traditional clothes. But if I attend some, I don't know, like international conference of like Middle Eastern study in Japan with this clothes, I'm sure that most of the people think I'm crazy. Like I think that they think that I'm wrongly choose like the different conference, or maybe I was going to go to like a wedding and not instead of like making presentation. But this is just like a constructed like perception about our own tradition. And what I was going to say, and oh yes, and for example, now why Japanese have to ashamed of like wearing like a traditional clothes, and this is not even traditional clothes. This is our own clothes. And
Yep.
and another thing is that there is a very interesting statement made by the professor, like Omar Farooq Abdullah. He's one of the leading American, intellectual, and he wrote a very interesting article called "The Islam and Cultural Imperative," Islam and Cultural Imperative, and he said that in the history of the Islamic civilization, actually, what Islamic civilization proved is the vision of Tawheed is like a clear water. Okay, the clear water, which is life given, and this water goes everywhere in the world and reflect the like unique, like special color of the in the vernacular context. For example, when the vision Tawheed reached to the Malaysia, they flourish like a Malay Islamic culture. And when Tawheed reached to the Central Asia, if they help like a Turkic people to establish the like a Turkic like Islamic culture, and also same goes is a Chinese Islamic culture as well. And but when we look about this, I'm not criticizing the whole discourse which is made by Western, but I'm talking about the
Yep.
Western centrism. What makes Western centrism brings us is that in making us being like ashamed our own local culture, and makes us being like vulnerable, and even it makes us like weaker, like, and then we have abandoned like so many values, and also the system of the akhlaq, and also like system way, even the system way of thinking as well. And
But Dr. Qayyim, could it be that, well, because I think one of the things that that is often commended about Japan and the Japanese people is that a lot of the your discipline, your basically your adab, basically what we see as a kind of adab
mhm,
in amongst the Japanese people, is
mhm,
applied to their work and in their industries, whereas in a lot of the Muslim countries we do not see that. So I think
mhm,
that's where the interest or the desire to emulate the Japanese achievements is there. But on the other hand, I think you're right. I mean, in my own travel, very short trip to Japan,
mhm,
sponsored by Japan Foundation a few years back, I noticed there is something lacking in terms of the balance. While
mhm,
they work very hard, they achieve a lot in the worldly sense, in the industry, in the corporate sense, but they lack a balance in their personal lives to the extent that they're pushing themselves above the limit, beyond the limit of their physical self. And I remember in one conversation we had from a member of the Japanese media. He was asking, what does Islam has to say about work-life balance? So it seems like they know what it means to be excelling and achieving, but they lack this balance because maybe they have some remnants. So this is what I'm thinking. They have some remnants of the traditional wisdom in their minds, but largely eroding. They have either forgotten or sort of westernized, as you said, in
Yes,
their
yes.
mindset.
I think the word reminiscing is a really good word, to analyzing the Japanese psychology, especially like modern Japanese psychologies, because yes, in general, Japanese are really polite and really disciplined, and they're good people. I mean, I think they are good people, like in general. But the problem is that they feel that they are forced to be disciplined. They feel like pressure to be polite. So before the radical modernization or westernization, there was kind of like a tenets or like a origins to producing the kind of the system of clock. So they know what they're doing. But I think now the modern Japanese, like, they don't know why they feel that they have to be disciplined. They don't know why that they have to be being polite. They don't know why that. Yeah. And as I said, and that's why they're losing balance. For example, do you know the word karoshi? Karoshi is like working until they're dead.
Overwork,
Yeah, overwork. Like they die because of the overwork. Like so, I'm always thinking. When I'm asked to describe the current situation in Japan, like I always use this metaphor that Japanese culture or the Japanese akhlaq is really beautiful, but this is like leaves of the tree. So now you can see the beautifulness of the leaves or even the flower, but now there is no like strong like like a tree
roots.
and the
Yeah,
roots,
yeah.
and once and now even we are that's not just not being able to see the roots, but actually we are losing these roots. And if we completely lost the roots, then this is a time that we lose the complete balance. And I know that many Muslims are I think sometimes Muslims in the Muslim countries are being too humble in the sense that they are sometimes too harsh on their current situation. They say that Muslims are not disciplined, Muslims are not enough. Like they have to study more. And look, Japanese are so hardworking. They even die, until they work because of overwork. But I think it depends on the perspective because every society has its own problem, and in Japan, the problem is that we're too the problem of Japan is that we feel this collective pressure from the society, and that makes Japanese discipline. But this is what exactly like Michel Foucault described about modern state, that every citizen and now feel pressure. So that's why they feel and they are controlling each other. For example, in Japan, they don't have the strong concept of the family anymore as well. But when we look at the Muslim country, the family is the most one of the strongest like a social structure that they still keep in. So what I want to say is that that we can learn a lot of things from the Muslim country as well, but also like in a Muslim country may be able to learn from from Japanese society as well. And I'm going back to the first question that how I exposed to my the Asian Christian culture is that after I visited in the old Muslim country, I started to think that how actually I became so westernized myself through my education and through my education. And do you know the word? I'm sure everyone knows Malcolm X. And yeah, and Malcolm, this is one of those favorite speech made by Malcolm. He said that there is a field Negro and house Negro, like field African Muslim and field African American and house African, American. And here this house something is the one who completely embrace this in his context, like American mindset, American-centric mindset. But here, I want to describe this like a Western-centric mindset. But Japanese is also, most of the Japanese, including myself, was like house Japanese. Like we feel that we are obliged to think like Western people, and we feel that that we think that being educated is the getting the Western education, and we think that when there's a problem in the Western America, we think that this is our problem as well.
Right.
That Malcolm X described that when he said that the white master is sick, and House Negro said that we are sick. Like for example, like I don't know. For example, in the issue of democracy, or in the issue of like LGBT culture, like I'm not criticizing those things, but instead that they think that the issue proposed by the Western countries is also
same issue as the Muslim.
assume the same issue goes to our country as well. But when I visited a Muslim country, I saw many like field people. Like they think that they have the strong identity as they be Muslim intellectual, and they try to propose some alternatives, but not just showing the new perspective to the world. They are firmly rooted with their traditional sciences and also culture. So this is the moment I also start to look east. So I said this is the moment of my experience of look east. Like I start to look my culture world, and I found actually there are so many beautiful things still remain in the Japanese society. The thing is that we are in the collective amnesia. It means like we have forgotten these values, and we have forgotten this like vision, the ones that Japanese people had. And one of the things, for example, like this Japanese, the simplest example, this Japanese clothes. Like the climate in Japan is almost like a close to Malaysia. Like Western clothes is, if you wear Western clothes, it's so humid and so hot, and actually we are torturing ourselves. But if we wear like our local clothes, like it makes me so relaxed. But without knowing that, we just keep like sweating, and we're walking in the city of Tokyo for like 1 hour, sometimes 1 hour or over 2 hours, with clothes. Like, but actually, the tradition doesn't mean that it's like a backward or it has no meaning. But actually, every tradition has the ḥikmah, and this ḥikmah is closely rooted with their own context. And I am. And also, I have started studying about our traditional Japanese culture, like including the like Japanese calligraphy, or the Japanese tea ceremony, or the classic Japanese literature. But I learned many things from them. So, for example, like there is a special philosophy called wabi-sabi, wabi-sabi philosophy in the Japanese tea ceremony, and wabi-sabi means the philosophy of simplicity, the philosophy of simplicity. And this philosophy of simplicity is completely opposite to the current mainstream mindset of, especially like capitalism. This capital means like, we become, in a really simple way, it means like we can get strong if we own something. But this wabi-sabi, it means that that the important thing about the human life is getting rid of the every kind of distraction to focusing on one things. It means like overcoming the distraction, and try to see the beauty of divinity in the simplest form of life, one of the reasons why I have started to study about this wabi-sabi philosophy or other traditional Japanese culture is that there are so many similarities between the Islamic vision and also traditional Japanese vision. For example, they even include this wabi-sabi, the beauty of simplicity, or the importance of overcoming the distraction and focusing on oneself. There is exactly a word in the Islamic terminology as well. For example, like philosophy of faqr, that overcoming the ghani, like from the humans like desire, and focusing on like the tawhid is called like in the state of faqr, and also like overcoming the undesirable like akhlaq and acquiring akhlaq is called like takhliya and tahliya. And we have exactly similar like values which is cherished in the Japanese aesthetic as well. And other that, for example, even the martial arts as well. For example, in Malay or Indonesia, this is called martial arts like puncak silat, puncak silat, silat martial arts. And one of the Malay friends told me that philosophy of puncak silat is like right now, many people think that martial art is just a sport. Like martial arts become just beating someone you don't like. But he was my friend. He was a practitioner of the puncak silat. He said that the ḥikmah of the puncak silat is learn how to achieve the state of tawadu. Tawadu means like the humility.
Humility.
Yeah, but this humility is not only for the human being, but also towards the divine. And Japanese martial arts, like even though the usually mostly Japanese, they have the different like religion, but they have the similar. They show a great respect to the similar vision as well. Like the Japanese martial arts is also the same. It means like we are not studying this martial arts to beating someone you don't like, but this is how you cultivating yourself, like rectifying yourself. So the essence of the Japanese tradition is rectifying or the cultivating, like
self-cultivation.
Yeah, like self-cultivation. And if we can like revive this tradition, then I think this is the time that that we are deserved to be like looked by the neighboring countries again. But
Dr. Qayyim, if I can interject there, I mean, we really appreciate your insights on these matters, and we inshallah we hope to have you for the second episode. But if I can just recap some of the very crucial points that you were just floating earlier, was that tradition. I think the point about tradition as having a certain wisdom and which continues to be relevant for our societies today, because I think you pointed out a pertinent point about how very often or sometimes or a lot of times today tradition is associated with backwardness. So this is the opposite of progress and development. So but I think in the traditional Asian perspective, as well as the Muslims, tradition is very much needed forever. I mean, it is guided by revelation, and is needed for us to achieve that balance in our lives and in our society, in our civilization. But Dr. Qayyim, there's so many insights that we hope to benefit more from you. Inshallah, in the second episode, we hope to hear more about your insights and your elaboration on what you were just sharing with us about the question of self-cultivation and what it can offer us with respect to progress and development as a nation and society. Thank you once again, Dr. Qayyim. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are very honored to have Dr. Qayyim Naoki Yamamoto. He's originally from Japan, but currently based teaching, in fact, as an assistant professor at Marmara University, Istanbul, Turkey, and to discuss with us on the question of progress and development based on Asian wisdom. Thank you very much. With that, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.